By the river, ospreys sing in harmony. On the islets, gentle and free dot. A fair maiden, pure and bright. A noble gentleman's heart's delight dot. Radiant the red sun lights the sky, as misty veils in silence fly. Situated in a secluded courtyard to the northeast of Pond Town, faintly comes the clear sound of reading aloud. The residents bustling around Pond Town hear the sound of reading. Joyful smiles appear on their faces. 5 years ago, a young person arrived in Pond Town. But he was a young man of remarkable elegance and extensive knowledge. The young man settled in Pond Town after arrival, and has been living here ever since. Before long, he established the first study lodge in Pond Town. He taught the children in Pond Town to be literate and discerning in words. For the older ones, he would teach them some of the 4 arts: music, chess, brush, and canvas. The fees for the study lodge were quite flexible. Those who could afford it would pay 2 taels of silver per month. For those who couldn't afford it, a few eggs would also be accepted. In just 5 short years, this young man gained high prestige in Pond Town. Due to his surname being Yi, he was respectfully addressed as Mr. Yi by everyone. "Excuse me," Mr. Yi interrupted. Just as Chong Qing Yi was teaching the young men to recite the classic of poetry, a plump woman with dark cheeks arrived at the door. Chong Qing Yi turned his head calmly and smiled, saying, "Miss Zhang, is there something you need?" "Today, people from the sacred land of metaphysics will come. We are selecting disciples in Pond Town. I want our son Bucky to go and give it a try," the woman said joyfully. Chong Qing Yi was stunned for a moment and then smiled, saying, "As long as one can become a disciple of the sacred land of metaphysics, the future achievements will be immeasurable. This is a great opportunity. I understand." "Bucky, come out quickly and go home with your mother." The woman first nodded respectfully at Chong Qing Yi. Then she waved to a little child. "Mr. Yi, I have brought you some eggs. I left them at the door. Remember to take them with you when you go back later." After speaking, the woman hurriedly left with Bucky, who was only 10 years old. Just as the woman had left, another resident named Pond Town walked in. Chong Qing Yi looked at them with a smile on his face, although his face still bore a peaceful smile. However, his heart was full of frustration. It looks like this study lodge is about to face closure. Sure enough, before the time it takes for a burning incense stick to burn, the vast study lodge was left with only Chong Qing Yi. He sat on the doorstep, looking up at the distant mountains shrouded in clouds and mist. He couldn't help but sigh quietly. Actually, he is a time traveler. He arrived in this world 5 years ago. This is a realm of immortal cultivation, where humans, monsters, and demons dwell together. A mighty cultivator wields supreme powers, soaring through the skies, vanishing into the earth, and overturning mountains and seas. When Chong Qing Yi first arrived in this world, he was full of enthusiasm. He thought that he could, like other time travelers, activate a golden finger and swiftly rise to the zenith of the immortal way, overlooking all living beings. What he did not expect was that, 5 years ago, when he underwent the assessment from the sacred land of metaphysics, he was unexpectedly detected to have no spiritual root. This meant that he was destined to be just a mortal in this world. And it has been 5 full years. He has still not received any hints of a golden finger. Sometimes he can't help but wonder if the author with a backlog of missing chapters forgot to give him a golden finger. However, having stayed in Pond Town for 5 years, he has also come to realize a lot of things. In this realm besieged by rampaging monsters and demons, outside is full of danger everywhere. If you can't cultivate, you can't cultivate. It's actually quite nice to hide here. The dazzling lights and indulgent revelry, and the clamor of the city has faded away, teaching people to read and write every day. In my spare time, I paint landscapes and write calligraphy. It's also nice to have a cup of tea and play the qin. And in order to live a more comfortable life, he deliberately opened a grocery store in Pond Town. Originally, he planned to sell some of his own calligraphy and paintings. But most of the residents of Pond Town are rough people who cannot appreciate them at all. Therefore, He also sells some local products on weekdays. During festivals and holidays, he paints some door god pictures and sells some couplets in this grocery store. With this shop, Chan Qingyi leads a fairly comfortable life. The students have all gone home. He had no choice but to close the courtyard door of the study lodge. When he returned, he reopened for business. He even specially took out 2 framed landscape paintings to hang in the grocery store. Today, people from the sacred land of metaphysics came to recruit disciples. The backgrounds of these people from the sacred land of metaphysics are mixed. It is possible that one of the disciples comes from a lineage steeped in literature. What if they take a liking to his painting? Of course, Chan Qingyi is quite confident in his own work. Part of the reason is that he once came from a lineage steeped in literature. Another reason is that ever since he arrived in this world, he quickly grasped the artistic conception in the 4 arts: music, chess, brush, and canvas. He is confident that as long as he takes any of his current works back, its market value is estimated to be over $1 million. Is painting these seemingly useless things my golden finger? Chan Qingyi suddenly tapped his forehead, as if he had some realization. But is this kind of ability considered a golden finger? Nonsense. This is a realm of immortal cultivation plagued by rampaging monsters and demons lurking everywhere. Even Pond Town adjacent to the realm of the immortals often experiences disasters. Swish, then a stream of light streaked across the sky above Pond Town. The piercing sound of breaking air was fierce and ear-piercing. Chan Qingyi gazed at the stunning silhouettes soaring through the skies on their swords, his cheeks full of envy. If one day I could also glide through the air on a sword, he thought to himself. Paired with my handsome face, I would probably wake up from dreams with a smile in the future. At the same time, the central square of Pond Town was already crowded with people. Every household with children had come. As the proverb goes, when one reaches enlightenment, even the lowly creatures soar to the heavens. Whose child from Pond Town is fortunate enough to become a disciple of the sacred land of metaphysics? Then the entire Pond Town will also benefit. There is even a good chance of receiving the protection of the sacred land of metaphysics. Swish, a series of breaking sounds suddenly resounded. 6 slender silhouettes, gliding through the winds on their swords, swept into view and landed in the center of the square. They were none other than disciples of the sacred land of metaphysics. We have seen all the cultivators. The villagers all showed a look of awe when they saw the newcomers, bowing deeply and respectfully. Among these travelers, the leading figure is a stunningly beautiful woman. She is dressed in a luxurious purple robe with intricate patterns. Her long hair cascades down, her features are picturesque, and her fair face reveals no expression. Disciple Lu respectfully bowed to senior sister Lu. Wuxuang Lu glanced at the 7 or 8 children in front of her and said in a soft voice, "Let's begin." The disciple turned around and waved his arm. Suddenly, there was a fist-sized crystal ball in front of him. The crystal ball was free of any impurities, clear and transparent, with a faint small rune appearing inside. It occasionally emitted subtle light waves, looking very mysterious. Those participating in the assessment lined up in order. One by one, they stepped forward. Without any hesitation, the residents present immediately formed a line. "What is your name? Doesn't Bucky Lee have a given name?" Yes, the given name is Chun Fengli." Wuxuan Lu beside felt somewhat surprised. "I didn't expect this child to look unkempt. However, the name does have a bit of Taoist charm." The first to undergo the assessment was little Snot Bucky Lee. He was seen lightly lifting his small hand and placing it on the crystal ball. Splash! In the next second, a golden light shot straight towards the clouds. Even the obscure runes inside the crystal ball emitted a golden light. My goodness! It's the premium metallic essence spiritual root. In an instant, everyone present had a drastic change in complexion, their expressions filled with incredulity. You should know that there are very few owners of the essence of metal spiritual root. Those with the intermediate metallic essence are generally referred to as little geniuses. The owner of the premium metallic essence can definitely be considered a genius in cultivation. It is conceivable that Wushuanglu and the others, seeing this scene before their eyes, must be very excited and uplifted. In this way, it is equivalent to adding another genius to Sword Spirit Peak for them. As for the residents of Pond Town, at this moment, seeing that Bucky Lee has been detected with premium spiritual essence. At first, stunned like a wooden chicken. Afterwards, all wearing expressions of joy. It has been nearly 300 years. Pond Town finally produced an extraordinary talent. Carry on the family's reputation with honor. It's a perfect demonstration of carrying on the family's prestige. Afterwards, the other children also underwent assessments one after another. What surprised people was that not only did they all detect exquisite spiritual roots, even their names were very domineering. Gui Zhao's E signifies exquisite earth essence spiritual root, while Zhongyan Fan's Yin denotes exquisite water essence spiritual root. I didn't expect that within our sacred land of metaphysics, there would be such a blessed land with a premium metal essence spiritual root. Suddenly, 7 other exquisite essence spiritual roots emerged, making a total of 8 geniuses in cultivation, which is truly unbelievable. After the assessments were completed, the disciples of the sacred land of metaphysics couldn't help but exclaim softly. The residents in the square also had different expressions. Some had crooked smiles, some had stiff facial muscles, with smiles that seemed to be carved on their faces. Some even had eyes widened to the point of spasms. At this moment, even the aloof Wushuanglu couldn't help but show a hint of a charming smile. Every 5 years, the sacred land of metaphysics sends disciples from each mountain peak to the secular world to recruit talented individuals. 5 years ago, it was the Eternal Clarity Peak from the sacred land of metaphysics that came to Pond Town. However, at that time, the Eternal Clarity Peak did not recruit any disciples here. But in just a snap, 5 years passed. When their Sword Spirit Peak came to recruit disciples, they immediately detected 8 talented disciples. Senior Sister Lu, we really gained a lot today. Once we return, Minter will definitely be delighted beyond words. The little girl standing beside Wushuanglu danced with excitement. Her youthful face was filled with a brilliant and clear smile. Wushuanglu also wore a gentle smile on her face. She looked at the 8 little ones and said, "Each of you go back and prepare. 2 hours later, we will return to the cultivation sect together." After saying that, Wushuanglu looked at the others. "Junior brother Wang, you guys stay here for now. The junior sister and I will go elsewhere. Senior sister Lu, please rest assured. We will stay here and wait for the junior brothers and their companions." Before long, 2 figures appeared. They were on the streets of Pond Town. Has senior sister been on the mountain for too long? It's actually quite nice to take a walk in the secular world. Especially this candied hawthorn is simply delicious. Walking beside Wushuanglu, a little girl held a string of candied hawthorn and said with a smile, "I really underestimated Pond Town before. It can nurture so many talents. Using Minter's words, this place is definitely a blessing land." Wushuanglu looked around and said softly, "I've never been to Pond Town before and have never heard of this place. But now, Pond Town is filled with spiritual energy. There's a hint of the celestial harmony of the Tao lingering around. It's possible that it is truly a blessing land." Senior sister, look. Those wooden hairpins are so delicate and beautiful. At this moment, the little girl squatted in front of a rather inconspicuous grocery store, joyfully exclaiming. Wushuanglu seemed to notice something unusual. She looked up at the wooden sign of the grocery store, showing a hesitant expression involuntarily. Chongqing Grocery Store. Although just 5 ancient characters in small seal script, with the brush dancing like dragons and snakes, the work flows forth in a single breath. From every word and line flows an immense and majestic force, making people feel awe-inspiring. When Wushuanglu was near this grocery store before, he discovered some anomalies. This grocery store is like a spring. Clear spring water flows gently, splitting into several streams flowing in different directions. Standing in front of the store, Wushuanglu felt as if he was immersed in a hot spring. Both his body and mind became relaxed. The hundreds of spiritual apertures all over his body also expanded, uncontrollably absorbing the overflowing essence and flow from within the grocery store. She could faintly sense the 5 ancient characters in small seal script on the wooden plaque. A vast swordsmanship spirit and rhythm. Yes, it is the swordsmanship spirit and rhythm. The brush dances with the grace of dragons and snakes. Brush strokes of silver and iron flowing like the sweeping motions of a sword, opening and closing grandly. The sword embodies strength, and within its strength resides intention. If this is not the ultimate truth of the sword's path, then what could it be? Just a few breaths, and Wushuanglu's face changed dramatically. He inwardly explained that it was dangerous, and immediately retracted his mind and spirit. In just a few words, there is an infinite depth of swordsmanship wisdom. Even with my exquisite metal essence spiritual root, and having ascended to the golden elixir stage, I almost had my sword heart crushed by its profound truth of the sword path. Wushuanglu murmured to herself incessantly. She breathed out a sigh of relief without danger. However, in the next moment, her somewhat pale cheeks were instantly filled with joy, as if she had comprehended something. "Senior Sister Lu, what's wrong with you?" The little girl squatting on the ground saw Wushuanglu's face, filled with excitement, and couldn't help but tilt her head in doubt and ask. "Junior sister, if nothing unexpected happens, I will be able to step into the 6th stage of enlightenment in the classic of the golden sword soon. My power has ascended to greater heights." Wushuanglu smiles as enchanting as a flower in bloom. "What? So fast?" The little girl's face is full of surprise. "Didn't Mentor say that you broke our Sword Spirit Peak's record by entering the 6th stage of the classic of the golden sword within 5 years? But senior sister, you have only just broken through to the 5th stage of enlightenment. It hasn't been half a year yet." Wushuanglu nodded and suddenly came to her senses. She raised her head and glanced at the 5 ancient characters in small seal script above. She couldn't help but look into the grocery store. Who carved the characters on this wooden plaque? Could it be a distinguished expert who has attained the zenith of the sword path, hiding such a terrible profound truth of the sword within them? At this moment, a rustic plain blue long robe appeared. The temperament was extraordinary and otherworldly. He looked only about 20 years old. The young man appeared in the sight. Seeing this young man in front of her, even the usually aloof Wushuanglu couldn't help but be moved. So handsome. He is simply the celestial being of exile gracing the mortal world. A glance is enough to tell that he is definitely not an ordinary person. Unfortunately, there is not a hint of the ethereal essence of Taoist cultivation exuding from the body. It seems to be just a mere mortal. Using transcendent awareness to scan the opponent's cultivation level, Wushuanglu shook his head with some disappointment. Oh my! Such an extraordinary and otherworldly temperament. She must be a disciple of the sacred land of metaphysics, for sure. No mistake. I have already learned that several of my students have been found to possess the exquisite spiritual root. Chan Qingyi, who did not feel a trace of excitement and joy in his heart, but rather sadness. On the one hand, his students are all heading to the sacred land of metaphysics to cultivate immortality, which means that his study lodge is about to close down. On the other hand, due to the remarkable performances of the students, it will inevitably cause a mental blow to him as a time traveler without spiritual roots. But when Chan Qingyi roughly guessed the identities of Wushuanglu and 2 people from their temperament and clothing, his melancholy mood suddenly improved a lot. The gold and silver in the secular world are not of much use to cultivators like them. So, when they are shopping, they basically do not consider the prices. Moreover, they are 2 women. If their mood improves, they may casually throw out a few pieces of essence stones. You should know that 1 piece of essence stone can be exchanged for 1,000 taels of pure gold and silver in the secular world. As for other aspects, Chan Qingyi will not think about them, nor dare to think about them. Although he is very handsome, he lacks spiritual roots, which is a flaw after all, because this is a realm of cultivation where the Tao reigns supreme. The 2 celestial maidens glanced casually around. The items in the small shop are absolutely of good quality and reasonably priced. Chan Qingyi, with a peaceful smile on his face, gestured to invite them in. Wuxuanglu nodded symbolically and entered the grocery store with curiosity. The shop storefront is not large, and the interior is not spacious either. However, the goods inside are neatly arranged without any sign of disorder. But when Wuxuanglu stepped into the grocery store, her thick, long hair moved without wind, flowing past her exquisite and transcendent face like rippling blue waves. This extraordinarily beautiful scene was beyond description even for cultural people like Chan Qingyi. At this moment, Wuxuanglu could clearly feel countless things. The subtle essence and flow come rushing in, causing the essence of spirit in her body to once again start operating uncontrollably. The spiritual apertures throughout the body are also expanding once again. By the way, I forgot to close the back door just now. Chan Qingyi seemed to have remembered something. He immediately turned around and walked towards the back hall. Wuxuanglu, on the other hand, remained expressionless. She roughly scanned the layout of the grocery store. When she inadvertently glanced at the exquisitely framed calligraphy hanging on the wall, her entire being seemed to petrify. All her mind and spirit were instantly drawn into the calligraphy. The evening rain unfurls the sheer curtains, bringing a refreshing breeze that whispers of autumn. The world before her seems to turn black and white. As twilight rain gently falls, the curtains of the home are drawn aside. A brisk and invigorating breeze caresses her cheeks. In the blink of an eye, the twilight rain descends, like countless sword strikes raining from the heavens. Just like black rays descending, the invigorating breeze morphs into an endless sword in tint. Like waves in the sea, as if to engulf everything in the world. Seeing the scene in front of her, Wuxuanglu couldn't help but draw in a cold breath. Sweat dripped down her forehead, and her chest heaved violently. Inadvertently, wisps of essence of the sword permeated her body. At the same time, the long sword in her hand began to tremble slightly on its own, emitting a faint, subtle sound. Suddenly, she retracted her mind and spirit as if gaining great benefits from it. A look of ecstasy instantly covered the pretty face of Wuxuanglu. Originally, according to her estimation, she would have to work hard to break through to the 6th stage of enlightenment in the classic of the golden sword. But now, due to her new insights gained from this painting, she directly achieved the breakthrough in the 6th stage. And in Wuxuanglu's view, the road she had to travel to comprehend all the profound truth of the sword path in this calligraphy was still very long. At this moment, Chan Qingyi walked out from the back hall. Seeing Wuxuanglu's strange expression as she stared at the calligraphy he had casually written, a satisfied smile involuntarily appeared on his face. It seems that this celestial maiden is also a calligraphy enthusiast. What a kindred spirit! Celestial maiden, you also understand calligraphy? Chan Qingyi asked with a smile. Wuxuanglu hesitated for a moment and pointed to the signature below the calligraphy, asking suspiciously, "May I ask, who is the person who signed this?" Upon hearing this, Chan Qingyi couldn't help but be stunned. It seems that the celestial maiden has taken a liking to this piece of calligraphy, even starting to inquire about the person who signed it. So he cleared his throat and said, "It is merely me." As soon as these words were spoken, it was Wuxuanglu's turn to be stunned. In this piece of calligraphy, every stroke and every space between characters contains the profound truth of the sword path. The competition is just something this young man casually did on the spot. This calligraphy was done by me a year ago. At that time, evening rain descends, the wind stirs and lifts the curtains. I was inspired and wrote it. Chan Qingyi introduced it with a smile. Wuxuanglu's expression changed repeatedly. Despite being young, there was a lack of sharpness in her. With a refined and detached demeanor, she possessed an extraordinary bearing. Such a person was definitely not ordinary. It appears that she was not unable to sense the essence of the other party, but that the other party's cultivation level was far above her own. It seemed like they were intentionally concealing their essence. At this point, Wuxuanglu bowed and hesitantly said, "Senior," but then suddenly closed her mouth without speaking further. The senior here, Gong Kan, has chosen to open such a grocery store for a reason. If a single phrase could reveal hidden truths, Senior might just say it, and make both myself and junior sister disappear in an instant with a breath. Chan Qingye's face froze, and he couldn't help but smile wryly. He quickly waved his hand and said, "Celestial Maiden, you might have misunderstood. I am just a mere mortal. How can I bear the title of senior?" Wu Shuanglu cast a timid glance at Chan Qingye and said hesitantly, "Senior, you might not know. Since childhood, I have had a passion for calligraphy. I learned a lot from your calligraphy just now. So, naturally, you are worthy of the title senior. So that's how it is." Chan Qingye narrowed his eyes slightly. If compared to cultivation, someone like him, who has no spiritual root, indeed wouldn't count for much. However, if compared to the four arts based on his current achievements, not to mention a disciple of the sacred land of metaphysics, even a saint master from there might not be his match. "Senior Sister Lu, do you like calligraphy? How come I didn't know about it?" At this moment, the little girl beside suddenly stood up. A look of confusion appeared on her face. Before I joined the sacred land of metaphysics, I was always obsessed with calligraphy. That's why you didn't know about this hobby of mine." Speaking of which, Wu Shuanglu couldn't help but show a trace of panic on her face. She glanced at the little girl beside her. Then he bowed to Chan Qingye and said, "Senior Wu Shuang really likes your calligraphy. I wonder if Senior would be willing to sell this calligraphy to me." Ha ha ha. Finally opened his mouth. Looking at Wu Shuanglu, Chan Qingye's face showed no emotion. Since this is a grocery store, anything placed inside is naturally for sale. Wu Shuanglu said softly, "Then please, Senior, how much do you sell this piece of calligraphy for?" Chan Qingye pretended to be reluctant and glanced over at the calligraphy hanging on the wall, giving a faint smile. "Since you two celestial maidens were able to find this place, it shows that we are destined. So this calligraphy will just go with the flow." Go with the flow. Hearing Chan Qingye's words, Wu Shuanglu's reverence towards him deepened a bit more. Indeed, he is a transcendent sage. Every sentence he utters contains boundless principles of the Dharma. Truly a role model for us. "How much are these 2 hairpins selling for?" The little girl raised the 2 delicate hairpins in her hand and asked for the price. Chan Qingye still smiled and replied, "As you wish, whatever feels right." The little girl nodded and then took out 3 copper coins from her pocket. She said, "I have bought similar hairpins at the foot of the mountain before. Although they are not as delicate as yours, they were priced at just 1 copper coin. So, I'll give you 3 copper coins for these." Damn it. Are these cultivation guys so stingy? 3 copper coins for 2 with hairpins. This is the market price in Pawn Town. Chan Qingye frowned without leaving a trace. Then he calmly took the copper coins from the little girl's hand and smilingly nodded his head. Noticing the essence and flow lingering on the wooden hairpin and receiving the 3 copper coins, Chan Qingye, with a warm smile on his face, suddenly saw the dilemma in Wu Shuanglu's eyes. There was a profound feeling of enlightenment. It seemed like a transcendent being of unrivaled skill like Senior was in the secular world perhaps just to experience life before cultivation. Therefore, exchanging treasures from the cultivation realm like this for calligraphy was no different from humiliating Senior. At this moment, Wu Shuanglu turned her head and looked at the little girl, saying softly, "Junior sister, how many copper coins do you have left?" The little girl extended 3 fingers, indicating she only had 3 left. "Then, let's lend them all to senior sister," Wu Shuanglu said. Wu Shuanglu took the copper coins from the little girl's hand and turned to Chan Qingye, saying, "Senior, how about I use these 3 copper coins to buy your calligraphy?" Chan Qingye nodded slightly. "To think that this perfect calligraphy is only offered 3 copper coins, it seems you are truly ignorant of its value," he said. With that in mind, Chan Qingye suddenly didn't want to sell any more. It felt better to use it as toilet paper in the outhouse than to sell it for 3 copper coins. However, due to the other party's status, he could only nod and smile. "Go with the flow," he said, nonchalantly. After receiving the copper coins from Wu Shuanglu, Chan Qingye turned around, took down the calligraphy from the wall, and simply placed it into a wooden box before handing it to her. "Thank you, Senior Wu Shuang and Junior Sister. I will take my leave now," he said. "Take care, two celestial maidens." Wu Shuanglu and the little girl turned to leave. Chan Qingyi, feeling depressed, also prepared to brew a pot of tea in the backyard to calm his wounded soul. "I wonder if they will come again in the future. I have some questions about calligraphy to ask you." Walked to the door. Wu Shuanglu, who was struggling internally, turned around hesitantly and asked, "Still want to come?" Chan Qingyi smirked and squeezed out a smile, nodding. "If the celestial maiden is willing, you can come anytime." Upon hearing Chan Qingyi's generous offer, Wu Shuanglu's fair face immediately filled with joy. She nodded repeatedly and said, "Then I will trouble Senior. I don't ask for anything more. To have more interactions with a transcendent being like this in the future, and to listen to his teachings more, is a blessing that cannot be sought but only encountered." As the two finally departed, a flicker of radiance danced in Chan Qingyi's eyes. Could it be that she truly likes calligraphy, for she actively requested to come seek advice in the future? It seems like this deal was quite worthwhile. On the other side, Wu Shuanglu and the little girl walked out of the grocery store, both looking radiant. The pretty face was full of joy. "Senior Sister Lu, what's gotten into you?" The little girl couldn't help but furrow her brows and ask. Wu Shuanglu smiled without saying a word, as if she had suddenly thought of something. She stopped in her tracks and said solemnly, "Junior Sister, the 2 hairpins you bought at the grocery store earlier, you must carefully store them away. Don't give them away or damage them." The little girl hesitated, asking, "Why?" Wu Shuanglu looked at the little girl and said word by word, "Because these 2 hairpins are your fortuitous encounter and good fortune. It may also be the greatest fortuitous encounter and good fortune on your cultivation journey." "Are these 2 hairpins of Senior Sister Lu so powerful?" The little girl couldn't help but feel completely puzzled. Wu Shuanglu laughed self-deprecatingly. "I'll tell you the truth. Just a moment ago, Senior Sister had already broken through to the 6th stage of enlightenment in the classic of the Golden Sword." "What?" The little girl's face changed drastically upon hearing this. She kept taking sharp intakes of breath. "Senior Sister, what you said is all true. What on earth is going on? Could it be that young and handsome shopkeeper?" Wu Shuanglu turned her head and cautiously nodded when she looked behind her. "That senior is a transcendent being. Damn it. Only sold a painting for 3 copper coins. It's truly speechless." The more Chan Qingyi thought about it, after sending off Wu Shuanglu, the angrier he got. He simply closed the shop door and carried his homemade wine gourd to the only tavern in Pond Town. "Mr. Yi, you're here." Just arrived at the door of the tavern. The bulky and round-faced manager Wei hurried out from inside, his chubby face full of joyful smiles. Chan Qingyi casually found a table to sit down. He smiled warmly and said, "Manager Wei, Earl and the others have left. Several children have also left. And those cultivators who left even said that Earl and the others have extraordinary talents. They will surely achieve great things in the future." Manager Wei smiled so much that he couldn't close his mouth. He sat facing Chan Qingyi. A glint flashed in his beady eyes. "Mr. Yi, feel free to order whatever you want to eat or drink today." "My treat," he said. Chan Qingyi nodded with a smile. "Let's stick to the usual," he replied. "The usual for tavern runner." Manager Wei turned his head and called out. Then he turned to Chan Qingyi and said with a smile, "Mr. Yi, you are truly knowledgeable. The way you gave grand titles to the children of Pond Town is really impressive. Especially my Earl. Those cultivators from Sacred Land of Metaphysics were stunned when they heard the name Zhongxian Wei. Speaking of this, Manager Wei burst into laughter." Chan Qingyi furrowed his brow as he looked at Manager Wei's somewhat ridiculous appearance. The gloomy expression on his face also dissipated somewhat. If Manager Wei knew that the name Zhongxian Wei was related to a certain eunuch, how would he feel? I estimate that it wouldn't be just about inviting for drinks and meals anymore. He would definitely pick up a kitchen knife and fight to the death. But speaking of it, In a certain dynasty on earth, Zhongxianwei carries an auspicious fortune for the dynasty that absolutely should not be underestimated. After nearly a traditional time, about 2 hours, Chan Qingyi felt that he had almost finished drinking and was ready to bid farewell. At this time, a deep rumble came from behind. "Mr. Yi, is this black dog of yours the one that was always at my place last year?" Black dog. Upon hearing this name, Chan Qingyi couldn't help but shudder.